There's something about a knock coming from the other side of a closed door that gets under your skin. You can stare at it for a long time before you realize your breath's gone shallow, your body locked in that tiny space between curiosity and fear. Who's there? What do they want? It's the not knowing that lets the anxiety ooze in, a sludgy, gunky mass wedging itself into the cracks of your mind. That's where this indie video game starts. A door, a knock, and a question.
Are you alone?
When I first played No, I'm Not a Human, I thought it would be a typical horror experience. Unsettling atmosphere, eerie sound design, and some twisted creature reveal. But this game isn't really about fear in the traditional sense. It's about hesitation, anxiety, the kind that crawls up from your throat, tightening everything on its way until even breathing feels like a risk. Frozen, overthinking, overanalyzing. Do I open the door? Do I trust this person? Do I let them in? You tell yourself it's safer not to, that if you stay alone, nobody can hurt you. But in this world, loneliness is a death sentence. Because there's something out there lurking around your windows that hunts the isolated. And that's when I realized this game wasn't about the perceived threat on the other side of the door. It was about how the only path towards survival is the rejection of loneliness and the risk of connection. Sometime in the near future, an extreme cosmic event has caused massive solar flares, scorching the planet. Temperatures rise so high that daylight itself becomes lethal, burning anyone alive that gets caught in it. Forest fires run rampant across the globe. Humanity adapts by turning nocturnal, sleeping through the day and coming out only under the cover of night. But the heat didn't just change the climate, it changed the world. Out of the cracks in the earth came mysterious entities we now call visitors. They look human, they act human, but they aren't. They impersonate, infiltrate, and kill. In the aftermath, the remnants of government clawed to maintain order. FEMA patrols became commonplace. Faceless officers moved from house to house under the guise of containment, quarantine, and testing. Whether they were rescuing survivors or rounding them up for something more sinister was never made clear. Panic spreads, half-truths flicker over your TV screen, homes burn, violence spreads, religion twists into fanaticism. People are forced to flee their homes, knocking on any door they can find, desperate for shelter, begging to be let in. Paranoia and survival became the only currencies left. Enter our protagonist, an ambiguously aged man living alone in a small house out in the countryside. On the first night of the game, before the solar flare hits, his kindly neighbor stops by with a warning. "I'm worried about you. You can't stay alone forever. It's dangerous to isolate." He stays the night to make sure we're safe, bringing with him beer, good company, and one final plea before heading home to his family the next morning. You have to let people in. From then on, every night begins the same. A knock at the door. Sometimes it's a human. Sometimes it's a visitor. It's impossible to tell the difference at first glance. The choice is yours if you let them in. Anyone you invite inside stays in one of the sad, disheveled rooms of your house. But if too many visitors slip through undetected, they start killing the humans inside one by one. The terrifying part is how indistinguishable they are. The only clues you get are through scraps of propaganda on TV, snippets of cryptic radio shows, or the phone calls you make as the nights go on. The signs of being a visitor are bizarrely mundane. Super white teeth, red eyes, dirt under the fingernails, hairless armpits, bleeding gums, darting eyes, a dark aura caught on film. What you slowly realize is that all of these details are perfectly normal. Maybe they have white teeth because they went to the dentist a lot. Maybe they have dirt under their fingernails because they were a gravedigger. Maybe their armpits are hairless because they're a young girl. Maybe their gums are bleeding because someone sewed their mouth shut. Maybe their eyes are red because they're a stoner. You're led to believe that these clues will tell you exactly who a visitor is, but you learn over time you can't trust everything you see on TV or that the government tells you. You can test anybody you let in, but every test drains your already thin reserves of energy. And if suspicion still lingers after you test them, well, you can always pull the trigger. When you're wrong, the next scene you see is of black trash bags piled neatly on the floor, which you can only assume are acting as a makeshift body bag. When you're right, and they were a visitor, the body glitches, showing some kind of strange demonic entity, warps, and a mutilated corpse is left on full display. In my first playthrough, I didn't trust anyone and found my house empty on the third night when you receive the first of many ominous visits from the game's main antagonist, the Pale Visitor. He has one simple question for you.
Are you alone?
And if the answer is yes, well... The Pale Visitor is the game's fail-safe. It's a way of making sure you don't just barricade yourself in and button mash through to the last day. If you refuse to let anyone in, he comes for you. He spends most of the game prowling at the edges of your consciousness, an ominous figure outside the windows leaving severed heads as warnings. He's stronger, deadlier, and infinitely more terrifying than any other visitor in the game, which means by the time you understand his pattern, you've already internalized the game's lesson. Staying alone isn't safety, it's suicide. This is when the real dread starts to sink in, not from what you see on the other side of your door, but from what you start to anticipate every time. I think about how many horror stories start this way. A knock, a phone call, a strange noise at the end of the hallway. It's the oldest trick in the book, but it still works because it taps into something primal, a reminder that your world isn't as sealed off as you think. In this game, those sounds hit the same nerve that they do in modern life. The same gut-level discomfort when your phone rings from an unknown number or someone knocks on your door unexpectedly, and your first thought isn't curiosity, it's, oh god, who is that? What do they want from me? That's what this game captures so well, the sound of intrusion. In a world where everything outside your walls feels hostile, loneliness feels like control, until it rots into slow annihilation. The longer you hide, the more fragile you become. Even the Surgeon General recently called loneliness a public health crisis, as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15! Every knock you ignore, every invitation you ghost, every wall you build is another slow inhale. In the game, the pattern of waking up in the day and waking up again in the night turns everything into a strange blur. What day is it again? You lose track of what's real and what's imagined, what you have to do, what you've already done. You stop trusting your own perception. I think that's the real horror of No, I'm Not a Human. When anxiety becomes religion and isolation becomes your god. Once you start worshiping isolation, you begin to fear anything that might break the silence, even your own memories. You convince yourself that stillness is safety. Forgetting is a kind of mercy. The mind starts pruning its own history just to survive, and before you know it, the walls aren't just around you, they're inside you.
What do you do? Sitting inside so many walls, long waiting for people, for answer.
There's one detail in the game that captures this perfectly, the back window in the bedroom. It's clickable, you can interact with it, but your character refuses to look through it.
I don't look that way. Not anymore.
Coupled with other trace hints to his backstory, the nightstand and the other side of the bed he says holds
Too many bad memories.
The photo of a woman in the living room to which he comments,
I'm better off alone.
It paints the picture of a man who sealed himself off not just from others, but from his own past. The window becomes a metaphor for everything we refuse to face. The grief, the guilt, the versions of ourselves we'd rather believe burned away. The way he avoids that window feels familiar. You can survive the present as long as you don't reopen old wounds. Leave them locked up in the part of your mind you barricade to stay functional. Out of sight, out of mind. With this in mind, the house stops feeling like a shelter and starts feeling more like a mind in decay. Dim light bleeding through curtains, static crackling from the old radio, shadows stretching too long across the floor. Even the air feels haunted. It's claustrophobic and hypnotic all at once. And that's where the atmosphere of No, I'm Not a Human really shines. Inside a liminal fever dream where reality starts to smudge, colors bleed together, and the world beyond your walls shifts just enough to make you doubt your own senses. It reminds me of the aesthetics of weirdcore, sovietwave, and doomercore, which blend melancholic nostalgia and dystopian stillness. Flickering streetlights, concrete apartments, rusted playgrounds. It's the kind of imagery that seems tired of existing, nostalgic for a future that never arrived, and haunted by the systems that promised it. And the soundtrack hits the same emotional frequency, synths echoing through the abandoned hallways, melodies that could be lullabies if they weren't so hollow. It's like every note is grieving something you can't quite name. These aesthetics became safe spaces for people who felt too much, a kind of visual empathy for alienation. And yet, the game transfigures this despair into something quietly human. You're trapped in a world that feels long past saving, but it keeps giving you reasons to reach out anyway. It doesn't let you sink into nihilism. It asks you to care. That's what fascinates me. How at the same time, it builds a comfortable nest of doomercore fatalism, but it also rejects it. It says, yes, the world is falling apart. Yes, everything feels hopeless, but still, you open the door, you feed the cat, you talk to the next person, you try again. And before you know it, a few nights have passed and your house is filled with strangers who start to feel familiar. You're surrounded by fragments of humanity, each carrying their own strange baggage of trauma, superstition, or guilt. The gravekeeper's story of witnessing a visitor emerge from the grave. A strange ballerina who felt compelled by some unknown force to bring you a cat. The stoner chasing away his apathy through television and pop culture. The kindergarten teacher who took in unwanted children abandoned by parents who swore they were visitors, until the angry mob came and made her watch them die. The widow who carries her husband's corpse because she can't let him go. The man with his mouth sewn shut, lost and desperate to find his way home. Your neighbor's daughter, after her parents were murdered and their house burned down. And on and on and on. You start forming attachments to these strange, broken people, even though you know better. You remember who betrayed you in your last playthrough, but you let them in anyway, hoping maybe this time will be different. It's not rational. It's emotional muscle memory, the same instinct that makes you forgive people who hurt you, the same instinct that convinces you to trust again, even when you know you shouldn't. The gravekeeper is my favorite character. There's something gentle about him, a kind of peace that comes from living alongside death for too long. He feels like someone who understands how heavy it is to keep tending to things that are already gone. When FEMA came and took him away, I actually felt a little betrayed, like they'd stolen something important from me. And that's when I realized what the game was doing. It's a simulation of forced proximity. You're trapped with people you didn't choose, and it creates an unexpected intimacy. It reminds me of the way we bond with coworkers or classmates, people who might never have been in our orbit otherwise. You spend enough time with them in shared tension, showing up every day, doing the same mundane tasks, swapping small talk, and something happens. You start caring. Vulnerability sneaks up on you right after you've convinced yourself you're safe from it. It's funny. The title, No, I'm Not a Human, almost feels ironic after a while, because what's more human than this? The endless pendulum swinging between wanting to be left alone and aching for someone to understand you. The paradox is the point. Loneliness is fatal, connection is risky. What saves you also breaks you. What hurts you keeps you human. No, I'm Not a Human doesn't hand you an answer to any of the questions it raises, because there isn't one. There's only the choice to keep answering the knock, to keep risking it, to believe that one of these visitors might be different, and that's what makes it beautiful. Not the variety of choice-based endings, not the layers of lore, not the incredible art design or the sound design, but the persistence, the refusal to give up on human contact even when it hurts. My favorite ending in the game was the gentlest one by far. After meeting death, a literal entity that we can talk to, we find ourselves wandering through a grassy path with a white picket fence and a house in the beautiful countryside. We're free in the daytime again, unafraid of the sun. The dialogue slows down, and the character just says he's tired.
Am I dead? Is anyone coming? I don't know how long I've been here, but now I feel calm, so very calm.
It's such a small, quiet ending. There's no closure, no grand reveal, just a surrender of someone who stopped fighting.
I don't remember how I got here. I don't know how to leave, but I don't really want to. I just hope this lasts a little longer. I wonder what it all meant. But that can wait. I'm tired. I'll just rest a while.
This ending hit me pretty hard because it's not tragic, not really. It's just still. Maybe No, I'm Not a Human isn't warning us to fight loneliness forever, that survival isn't always about clawing your way back into connection. Sometimes it's about remembering why you wanted to in the first place, even when it hurts, even when you're tired. Because every knock, every call, every voice that reaches out, that's the universe asking if you're still here. And maybe the most human thing we can do is keep answering.